we got to come up with some names, help them out, right? I think the name Jay would be a good name. Wow. Anyways, I'm going to move on. I'll share a little bit about us for those visiting. We planted the church 4.5 years ago with 21 people. And when they came from all over the nation, we had 11 people from New York. We had 2 people from Boston. There's two from Boston. We had 3 from LA. And then we had 5 from Chicago. There's one of them right there. All right, now we're at about 65 members. Okay. And since then, we have sent out 18 people on different plantings around the world. Now, you heard that basically we did, 28 plantings last year, worldwide. Not just us, okay, we worked together. And then this year we're doing another 30. And so we're sending out people all over the place, okay? And then last year we sent out 6 full-time staff from here. That takes a lot to do, okay? And then we were given the charge, we are the pillar church to work with Russia and Central Asia. Alright, so if you guys are interested in going to Central Asia, let me know. Places like Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan. Talking to a guy here today, Sam, he said he's interested, he said that'd be kind of cool. Little does he know. Now, to accomplish the great growth we've had, there's certain things that have had to happen. And I appreciate so much the video we watched, the GNN, we call it, Global News Network. And you can see the dynamics of what's happening around the world. And that was just a very small inkling of what we've been doing. And so we're going to get basic here to give you an idea of exactly what we're about. Please open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 28. And this was actually shared with the sharing from the brother from Dubai. Matthew chapter 28. The title of the lesson is Basic Christianity. Now, one thing that you'll find is that we are probably the most primitive form of Christianity you'll find. We don't have any man-made doctrines. All right? We don't have any traditions. We just follow the Bible. And a lot of people will say, hey, it's hard to understand the Bible. No, it's not. If you were just to read it, there's a lot of stuff you can pick up on. In fact, the NIV is written at an 8th grade level. The New King James Version is written at a 7th grade level. And a lot of people don't realize that. They think, oh, you got to have be a scholar to understand it. No, you don't. You just read it and you'll get convicted. And it's as simple as that. And then one thing you'll notice is every Sunday we have all sorts of different people come up here and share. And it's not like we have to coach them on what to do. They just use the scriptures and they share their heart. Because it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand what God's trying to tell us. And so it gives us the freedom to really be able to understand and know the Bible on our own. We need each other for all sorts of other reasons, but we're going to look at something that Jesus said in Matthew 28. And basically, just so a little background here, Jesus has died, he's buried, and he's been resurrected. And he's about ready to leave again, and he says this to us. Matthew 28, starting in verse 18. So then Jesus came to them and said, all authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. Therefore go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely with you always to the very end of the age. Alright, there's some things that Jesus says here. He says, listen, I have all authority in heaven and on earth. He says, I have all authority. Now this is what I want you to do. And he tells us exactly what he wants you to do. And yet you find very few churches doing this. Yeah. And this is called the Great Commission. it's become the great omission. Because very few churches do it. They don't really go after it. Why? Because there are things that it institutes that people don't like. Such as obedience. Yeah, a lot of people don't like that. Point number one, Jesus has all authority. Now there's a reason why this was so important to Jesus. Last parting words, this is what I want you to do. He pulls the authority card and he says, hey, you got to do this. And the Bible basically, there's another few words that you find in the Bible for this. It's just making Jesus Lord. That he's the master. We obey him. We do what he says. And that's really true Christianity. You'll find a lot of Christianity out there where people don't resemble anything in the Bible. They claim Christianity, yet they've never even read it, let alone obey it. And you're like, okay, why do you consider yourself a Christian? I was born in America. My parents are Christian. I believe in God. And people claim things that they don't even know really what they're talking about. And that's where we got to dig it up. We got to understand, what is it that God is calling us to be in reference to being a Christian? And he says, I have all authority. Now, most people don't like authority. You know, people have a problem with authority, have a problem with authority. You can write that one down. Now, I believe, by nature, we're rebellious people. I was very rebellious growing up. I don't know about any of you. Yeah. Rebellion is in our nature. In fact, it's how we started as a nation. We rebelled against the King of England. We said, no, we're not going to follow your laws. We're not going to do it. We're out of here. Now, there's repercussions when you decide to disobey. And, of course, led us into the Revolutionary War. But imagine if there were no laws in the land. What would that look like? Chaos. And so we understand now that we need boundaries. We need things that we got to obey. Now, one of the things that amazes me about Milwaukee, and maybe you've experienced this, is how people fly through red lights. Oh, yeah. You know, I was talking to Johnny one time, and I said, you know, hey, it amazes me how people just fly through red lights. We pull up to a stoplight, and a car goes right past us. I'm like, there you go. Now, I looked it up, and I can only get stats from 2017. 22 people died from that in Milwaukee. The fine for doing it, $98. It's like, okay. And, you know, we understand, hey, this is serious stuff. And sometimes, especially as kids, you don't realize the ramifications of what you're doing. You just want to be cool or whatever, and you get in trouble. I remember one time in middle school, all right, I took a shop class on electricity. And nothing can go wrong with that, right? So anyways, they taught us how to make an extension cord. And the teacher said, okay, everybody listen to me. Don't try your new cord here. Do it at home. Because if it doesn't work, you will wipe out our electricity. So I decided to try it out. Plugged it in. And I wiped out the whole wing of the school. Everything went dark. Wow, who did that? What was that? I got in a little trouble there. But you gotta learn, you gotta listen, you gotta stop rebelling because there's ramifications. And my mom had a little talk with me that night. Bad things happen when you don't obey. Are any of you rebellious teenagers? Yeah. Do you know anybody who died because, as a teenager? Drunk driving or what have you? Yeah. It happens. And somewhere along the line, we need to learn to obey. Yeah. Now, in this passage, he says, go make disciples of all nations. A disciple is another term for Christian or a follower of Jesus. And then he says you baptize them, but then at the end he says, and teach them to obey everything. He doesn't just say teach them. He says teach them to obey. That takes it to a whole other level. Why? Because we're rebellious. Yeah. And so it doesn't end at baptism. It begins. Amen. The teaching. This is where discipling happens. Okay. And that means you really can't do it from the pulpit. I can teach all sorts of stuff. Doesn't mean you're going to obey it. But if we have a relationship, I can sit down and say, okay, what's stopping you from doing the very things you want to do? You want to be a disciple. You want to obey the Bible. Because there's benefits in doing what's right. Yep. And now we got to get them over the hump to stop them from disobeying. Now there's a lot of reasons we disobey. A lot of reasons a lot of people disobey the Bible. First, they may not even believe. This is just a bunch of words. Or it could be their pride. Not that any of us would struggle with that. And thinking we know better. I have this incredible insight from all my years of wisdom, and therefore I'm going to do what I want to do. And so we suffer for it. Come on, bro. And like I said, we have problems with authority. But I had to look at my life and say, hey, how am I doing now that I'm in charge? And it wasn't looking good. And I knew I needed help. I knew I needed some direction. And then some people came to me and began to teach me. And it takes humility to be taught. Hey, I'm a prideful guy. I still struggle with pride. Yeah. It's there. I'm scared of it. I hate it in my life. Because I know when I get prideful, the learning stops. Yeah. And we think we know better. Look at Luke chapter 14. Jesus is going to talk a little bit about this. About his expectation. Now, this is basic stuff, and for the members of the church, it's always good to have a reminder, right? Bring us back to the basics. We're just going to read at the end here, Luke 14, verse 31. It says, suppose a king is about to go to war against another king. Will he not first sit down and consider whether he is able with 10,000 men to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he's not able, he will send a delegation while the other is still a long way off and ask for terms of peace. In the same way, any of you who does not give up everything he has cannot be my disciple. Wow, did I read that right? Yeah. Well, let's talk about it. So God is one king and we're the other. We like to be Lord of our life. We like to do what we want to do. We make the decisions. And God is saying, listen, when you don't submit to the scriptures and to me, you're in opposition of what I'm trying to get done. And we're at war. And you're not going to win because I'm more powerful. And eventually, you have to come to grips with God. Whether you believe or not, it's a spiritual truth. And he's saying, listen, if you're smart, you'll send a delegation long way off. In other words, when you're younger than on your deathbed. And ask for terms of peace. And you got one country going to war, another country, and one country comes to grip with, I'm not going to win, I surrender, I do the white flag. Yeah. And it can't be, hey, I have conditions in my surrender. At the end of World War II, Japanese surrendered, they had their own conditions. They said, we'll surrender if, boom, boom, boom. The United States said, no, unconditional surrender. That's kind of a blow. But, we're prideful people. We need to surrender. God knows better than we do. We're not going to win. We end up suffering if we do it our way. And you can look at your life and you know what I'm talking about. Talk about it. Now, if we're not going to win, and we realize that, then we say, okay, it's time to surrender it. And like I said before, there's a term for that, making Jesus Lord. Or master. He's the master, we do what he says. And things go great. But he says you got to surrender what? Everything. What's everything? Define everything. You know, once again, 8th grade level, 7th grade level, everything means everything.
Right.
Well, I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's right.
Come on, bro.
Well, God is in total control anyways.
Right.
You just need to come to grips with that.
Right.
You can't be in charge of the sun. You can't be in charge of the weather. You can't be in charge of your heartbeat.
Right.
Your organs. You can't, in the middle of the night, think, okay, liver, keep going. You keep going. It doesn't work like that. This is pretty complex. This isn't just coincidental. And God's like, I am totally in charge. And the Bible says, in Him we live and move and have our being. He's everywhere. And He's like, listen, I want you to surrender, because if I give you an inch, you take a mile.
Right.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Those of you who have teenagers know what I'm talking about. Give them an inch. Take them off. Well, you didn't exactly say. Okay. Let me, But surrender is surrender.
Yep. Exactly.
In other words, He owns us. The only thing He really doesn't own is our minds. And He says, listen, I want you to think godly thoughts too.
Wow.
I want you to think faithful thoughts. I want you to see what I see and change the world around you just by your presence. It doesn't control our mind, but sometimes our brains, we need to clean it up.
Yeah.
God says, listen, hey, you know what? You're free to make your own decisions, but I want you to obey me. Why? Because I love you. I died for you. I've gone the extra mile. I have given up everything.
Right.
Let's do a two-way relationship here.
Right.
I gave you my best. I gave you my all. I'm asking you to do the same.
Right. Talk about it.
And Jesus saying the only way this is going to work if you do it my way.
Right.
And like I said earlier, people want conditions. They want to pull God into their life and do God what they want God to do what they want Him to do.
Yeah.
And God's like, no, I have a better way. And you need to trust me because I know what I'm talking about.
Come on, bro.
Let's look at an example of this. Matthew 7.
Come on, bro. Take this, man.
You guys getting all this?
Yeah.
You thought this would be a nice, warm, and little fuzzy kind of thing, right? Matthew 7, verse 21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. Many will say to me on that day, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and perform many miracles? Then I'll tell them plainly, I never knew you. Away from me, you evil doers. He's saying, listen, it doesn't matter how much you believe in me. That's not the issue.
Right.
They believed in Jesus. And it doesn't matter how many times you say Jesus is Lord. The question is He Lord?
Yeah.
Is He the Master? And these people, they did amazing things. They're driving out demons, performing miracles, prophesying. Doesn't matter. Not impressive to Jesus.
Right.
It's like, listen, you didn't do my will, you did your will.
Woo.
And that's what it comes down to. Are you a person of your word? If you're going to say Jesus is Lord, is He Lord?
Amen.
That's why this works. That's why you saw the whole GNN thing. Because people are surrendering to the Scriptures. And there's a dynamic there. But Jesus said, hey, listen, I never knew you, even from the start. That's pretty intense. I would hate to have that happen to me on Judgment Day. I'm like, man, I'm in. This is awesome. And then He's like, no, I don't know you. Now, you got to understand, there's a relationship here. Because I didn't know you.
Right.
And obedience has something to do with the relationship. Well, The Bible talks about that too. Look at 1 John chapter 2.
Come on, bro. Come on. Okay.
1 John chapter 2. Now, I want you to think of the dynamics of all this. Imagine if everybody in the world decided to obey Jesus. What would this world look like?
Amazing.
It'd be amazing.
That's right.
What would a church look like?
Wow.
That's what we're trying to do. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist. You can challenge yourself. Am I doing this? Is there anything in the Bible you're not obeying? Then change it.
Come on, Dave.
1 John chapter 2, starting in verse 3. He says, we know that we've come to know him if we obey his commands. The man who says, I know him, but does not do what he commands, is a liar. Wow! And the truth is not in him. But if anyone obeys his word, God's love is truly made complete in him. This is how we know we are in him. Whoever claims to live in him must walk as Jesus did.
Come on, bro.
Does it say you can claim Christianity and do whatever you want?
No.
Not at all. A lot of religious people hate this passage.
Yep.
Why? Because it calls them out of their comfort zone.
Wow.
Well, God knows my heart. And there's a lot of excuses and rationale for why people don't obey.
Come on, bro.
Well, I'm trying. And we got to understand the magnitude of this passage.
Yep.
He says they must do it. Are you going to be perfect? Absolutely not. But when you blow it, you learn from it, you grow, and you move on. That's loving people. That's what marriage is supposed to be like. Barb knew I wasn't perfect. I know, it's a shocker. But she knew I could be committed.
Right.
Without the commitment, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
And he says, we know that we've come to know him if we obey. How does obedience equal relationship? Man who says, I know him, but doesn't do what he commands is a liar. Either they're just flat lying or they're deceived.
Right. Facts.
And so we gotta understand the dynamics of this passage. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Talk about it.
If you do what Jesus does, you're going to get the same response. You know, I appreciate him talking about persecution. Jesus get persecuted?
Yeah.
Jesus is perfect. And they killed him. Whenever you decide to do what's right, people are going to, try to either stop you or they'll hate you or all sorts of things.
True.
You'll get the same responses.
Right.
But he says, hey, it's an issue of relationship. You can be deceived about where you're really at. And if people aren't willing to do the walk, then they're saying, I'm not with you.
Right.
I'm not really, your purpose is not my purpose. I'm going a different direction. That's not relationship. If I said to Barb, hey, you know what? I'm going to live in Chicago, you can live in New York, and we'll have a great marriage. Not going to work. You know, Matthew 28, he says, go make disciples.
Right.
Do we obey that? Why is he saying for us to go make disciples? Does God need us to do that?
No.
God can do anything. He doesn't need us to do that.
Facts.
But when you do it, then you're working with him. And we grow from it.
Yep.
We change. I can't call somebody to repent of something if I'm in it.
Facts.
Keeps us pure.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I'm with you, heart and soul. Now, this summer, it'll be married 39 years. Now, believe it or not, over that time, I've learned a few things. Yeah, just a few things. I've learned that what's important to Barb needs to be important to me. If I say, I don't care about it, I don't know why that's such a big deal. All right? That doesn't make it go well. Okay? But if I say, listen, I don't get it, but I want to. Oh. Does that make a difference, ladies? Yes. Absolutely. And for me to care about what Barb cares about is showing her that I love her. And it's vice versa too. Ladies, you gotta find out, why is this thing so important to you?
Come on, Dave.
What's the big deal? Okay, we that little response there, right? Really? I mean, I'm saying that your feelings are important to me. And see, this is what we do to God. Saying, I don't care. I want what I want. I don't want to do your will. I want to do my will. Now, I can be a little thick in the head from time to time. But it makes a world of difference when I am trying to think through these things. And I'm making effort. That's what God says. Listen, give me something to work with you. You know, this last week, a week or so ago, our venue for Women's Day was canceled. And Barb was like, we got to get a new venue. And she asked me, can you join me on Thursday? Now, I had all sorts of stuff planned on Thursday. I had a choice to make. All right? Those 39 years came valuable. I said, yeah, I'll do it. Let's do it. So I had to rearrange my schedule. Meant a world of difference to Barb. That Women's Day isn't just for the women. That the brothers need to get involved to support. That's loving them. Am I right? Now, Jesus said, listen, I came in the world to get to understand and know you. I want to understand suffering as you do. I'm going to start as a baby and I'm going to go through the whole thing and I'm going to be tortured to death for you. That's relationship. That's sacrifice. And he's like, listen, I need you with me because I will change the world. And I need your help to help my other children. And if you care about me, you care about my children. Now, a lot of times we can obey with the wrong heart. And just do it. Fine, I'll do it. And what's amazing in the Bible, you see many, many scriptures where people did that. Like Peter, when Jesus told him to throw the nets, he's like, hey, I've worked doing this all night long, but because you say so, I'll do it. And a miracle happens. And God says, just obey me, watch the miracles. Even if your heart's wrong, give me something. How much more when our heart is right? I'm obeying outside, but I'm not obeying inside. I'm rebellious in here. Let's change that. Get the right heart. Here's the question. What is it that you're refusing to obey? Are you refusing to forgive people? Are you refusing to change certain areas of your character and your life and sin? Dealing with pride, selfishness?
Yeah.
Another reason we're having success, point number 2, loving God. Calling each other to love God. Let's go to Matthew 22.
Let's go, Jack.
Yeah, there's only one more. Matthew 22, verse 36. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. All right, we're going to the basics here. Love God, love people. And now we need theologians to tell us what love is. Okay? No, we don't. It's pretty obvious. Now, what's amazing to me is that God has to command us to love people. Commands us. You know, imagine if I said, Kenny, you've got to love me. I command you, love me. That'd be weird. But it just shows you the extent of our selfishness. We don't even think about love. We don't care about each other. Love isn't natural. What's natural is selfishness. And we hurt others with doing it. Okay, so how does God define love? Look in John chapter 14. All right, let's just read it. John chapter 14, verse 15. John 14, verse 15. All right? Whenever it's in red, those are Jesus' words.
Yeah.
Those are not mine. If you love me, you will obey what I command. All right, now let's think about what does that mean? It's obvious. God looks at his obedience as a big part of loving him.
Right.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just threw that in there and it's just, random scripture. All right, look at verse 21. Whoever has my commands and obeys them, he is the one who loves me. Whoever loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love him and show myself to him. Okay, it doesn't take a lot to understand what he's trying to get at.
Right.
Verse 23. Jesus replied, if anyone loves me, he'll read his Bible, he'll believe in me, and pray for me. Is that what it says?
No.
He will obey my teaching. And it comes down to that. Well, let's even clarify more. Verse 24. He who does not love me will not obey my teaching. Let's hit it from a different angle here. Well, what about you, Jesus? Well, I'm glad you asked. Look at verse 30. I will not speak with you much longer, for the prince of this world is coming. He has no hold on me. But the world must learn that I love the Father and that I do exactly what my Father has, what? Commanded me. Even Jesus showed by example loving God is obeying his commands. And you know what his command was? To die on the cross. Even when we didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense. And Jesus knew the path to this obedience meant freedom for all mankind. And it means freedom for us. Look in John chapter 8. You guys get this?
Yeah.
Alright, well maybe you're feeling like, well, I don't want to obey. There's things I don't want to give up. Things I don't want to quit. Sure nobody's felt that way. Chapter 8, verse 31. It says, to the Jews who had believed him, Jesus said, if you hold to my teaching, you're really my disciples, then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Okay? He's talking to people who believed in him. And he's saying belief is insufficient. It's not enough. You want to really be a follower, a disciple? Then you hold to my teaching. Then you'll know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Reading the Bible doesn't set you free. You can know all you want about the Bible. It doesn't mean that you're going to obey it.
Right.
Once you obey it, then that aha moment goes, I get it. I see how this works. And there becomes more and more freedom as you go on. If you hang around us long enough, you'll realize there's a joy here. There's a family. There's a unity. That comes from this.
Yeah.
You don't get groups of people like this having the kind of relationships that we do just by chance. You got black, white, Hispanic, Asian. You got older people, younger people. It's all family. It crosses all sorts of boundaries. That's what love does. And if you choose to disobey, it hurts the family.
Right.
Yes, the test is, are you free? If you're not free, then there's something you're missing, something you're not obeying. And God says, listen, I want you to be happy. I want you to be free. Now, if you've been a disciple a few years, the question is, are you surrendering everything? Are you happy? Are you making disciples? What are you doing? And it doesn't matter if you're a member of the church. It comes down to you and God.
Right.
Your relationship.
Talk about you.
Matthew 28, he says, teach them to obey everything. Till Jesus comes, or you become Jesus, you're going to need somebody in your life calling you out higher.
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 40 years. Barb and I still have a couple discipling us. We always need it. Why? Because we don't see ourselves.
Yeah.
One of the things I appreciate about marriage, Barb rescues me many times. Jay, you don't want to be wearing that. Doesn't match. We need each other. We tweak each other.
Yeah.
Help each other to obey. You can do this. You've done this. You've done that. Don't you remember how many victories you've had? You can do it.
Come on, Jay.
And you call them out of whatever they're in, and they get freer and freer.
Yeah.
But me, I know what stops me is my pride. I get stubborn. Any of you get stubborn? Yeah, I know you can. I've talked to you. It is stubborn. We can get stubborn. If someone challenges you in an area of your life, listen. Humility will help you and rescue you. And if you're not obeying, go after it. Pride is a killer. And I realize when I don't obey, eventually it comes back to bite me. It's going to come up. And I suffer and other people suffer for it. Want to be free and happy? Obey. There's a quote I want to read to you. This is by Ezra Taft Benson. Do you know who that is? Neither. Here's the quote. Our enmity toward God takes on many labels, such as rebellion, stiff-neckedness, unrepentance, puffed up, easily offended, and sign seekers. The proud wish God would agree with them. They aren't interested in changing their opinions to agree with God's. I think that's so true. We want God to change versus us changing. You know, I appreciate so much the changes I've seen in people here. There are radical changes. And the joy level just up and up and up. And it brings so much to me to see people overcome and then change other people's lives. People who will leave and come back and say, you know what, I tried to do it another way, it doesn't work. We are far from perfect here. We could write a book on the things that we need to change. But help us change it. Help us work together to change Milwaukee. Milwaukee is a very hurting city. It doesn't take long to see the pain and the suffering.
Facts.
And you'll either help God do something about it, or you'll be in opposition to what He's trying to do. There's very little freedom in Milwaukee. I'm going to close with a challenge. Guys, ready for this? All right, here's the challenge. Find that one thing that you're disobeying. What is it? You know what it is.
Come on, bro.
Pray about it. Bring it up. Have people hold you to it. And change it. And then you know what you do then? You go to the next thing. And then the next thing. And watch your freedom grow. God wants to do miracles. This is our year of miracles. He wants to do miracles through you and me. And we will if we love God and obey. And to God be the glory.